All right, we're good.
All right, I'd like to go ahead and open up the Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 warrant and Board of Alderman meeting. Coming up with or I guess I should say, as I did it last time, we are coming to you on a Zoom meeting due to the COVID-19 issues that we still are in phase 1 of, and we are complying as best as we can. We are asking either calling 312-626-6799, or the meeting ID for Zoom is Mel or Brandy. Do you have that?
I do. It's 956-274-8536.
There it is. Thank you. Or you could actually email us at City Hall for any questions or comments you would like while we were in this stage of phase 1. With that, we'll move to the consent agenda items.
We have the regular meeting minutes from May 5th, 2020.
I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
Moved.
Second.
First person.
I believe Alderman Schultz.
Okay. Alderman Schultz. Seconded by Alderman Dyer. Roll call vote.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey,
Yes.
Alderman Dyer,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Next will be public comments received via email. Do we have any, Melody?
There were none.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from the Board of Aldermen.
I visited some businesses the last couple of days, and I was a little encouraged with the participation in the mask wearing. When I actually went and got my hair cut, and they were practicing the requirements that were sent out. So didn't hear any real negative comments.
The only thing that I have to say is I think we tried our best to get all the information out there that we could, and an educated community can really take action to understand how to protect themselves. And so now it's just up to them to decide whether they want to take those steps. So I think the city did their part.
I agree.
I think that's right, Cheryl.
I would agree.
Any other comments? We'll move on to mayor comments. I will say this may spur a little bit of conversation, but I'm a little shocked and spoken with a couple other people about how many pools are shutting down for the summer when they're talking about a lot of this COVID-19 is going to not diminish. I won't say go away, but it's supposed to be cut down by some of the heat and some of the outside recreations that we're having. And I get the social distancing, but at the same time, well, I'm just surprised by it. And we've got a lot of applauds out there with taking the step to try and move towards getting the pool open for some activity to do. I don't know. I was greatly encouraged by it, but there again, same as with Gary, I've spoken with some business owners who applauded us for sending out some recommendations, maybe some things they weren't thinking about. They appreciated it. They had some questions that were easy to answer, and I haven't gotten any negative feedback since anything we've done. Maybe it won't spur any conversation.
That brings to mind something. I probably should have made comments in
Good.
Alderman, but I've had questions, and I guess we need to make a decision as a city board whether we're going to have the Concert in the Park series. I talked to some people, they were disappointed that we didn't have one in May. which would have been May, which would be coming up, I guess, this Friday night. But I told him, I said, well, that was still, kind of up in the air that we didn't. The comments they made, though, were that, you're in the park area. There is ample space for social distancing, and we've never really had what you would call a super big crowd there. Not quite like, Marthasville, it has a couple hundred people there, 200 to 300 people probably. But so I guess as a board, or we need to get some direction whether we're going to have the June concert in the park here in Warrenton, the July or August. I know there's been a lot of the larger venue concerts and everything like that in St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County. A lot of them have been canceled or postponed. But I know Washington, I heard, is going ahead with their with some of their functions coming up in June. So I don't know if this is a time or a place to bring it up. I know, Brandy, we have a tourism commission meeting next Tuesday. I don't know if you all want to wait till after that, but that would give us, June 2nd. I think our concert is scheduled for not the Friday after that, but it'd be the week after that. So I don't know. I'd like to hear some comments on that. If you guys let me know where you stand on it.
Mike, personally, I'd love to see that come back. I mean, we can easily socially distance at that park. I mean, if it comes to, like, I saw a park on TV where they actually drew circles, 6-foot circles for families to stay in their areas. If we felt like we needed to go back that far, but I think it would be a lovely evening. It's outside. Wear your mask. I would like to see some amount of normalcy return, and I think that would be a good way to do it. Anybody else?
I agree. I don't see a problem opening the concerts back up. I mean, if people want to set their chairs in a distance from their neighbor, I mean, it's an outside venue. I don't see an issue with that.
Well, I know one of the things was, and I can't remember who told me about it, but they saw one, and I think it was earlier in May, but they said what that place did, they went and spray painted a grid. In other words,
Squares.
I don't know, Brad, if you would want to tackle that or not, but they spray painted a grid because they knew, well, okay, then it would be there for a couple of weeks. Then first grass mowing after that, it would probably be gone. That was one way they suggested we to do the social distancing. So I don't know. I hear where you're coming from on that, Scott. That's a good point. So
I think if we have it, I think be a welcome relief from what most people have been going through for several weeks. I think it would be appreciated, and as long as we have the proper distancing, I think we could do it.
I would agree. I mean, you got to rely on people to do the right thing. I mean, you see groups of people out there on TV and everywhere that, they're right next to each other. You can't keep them apart unless they want to be apart. So let's just have it. Let them go for it.
Staff, do we have any comments on that?
My only concern, Mayor, is how is that affected by the governor's requirement to limit group settings to 10 or less? And because we're a city government, if social distancing is not adhered to, what kind of negativity do we get from that?
Terry, did you interpret that though, that was for an outdoor activity as well?
I thought it was just indoor on that, but I'm not
That's
sure.
what I thought.
Chris, are you on here?
Yeah, I'm looking right now. That's an interesting point. It says, I got to make sure I'm looking at the right one. It says, in accordance with the guidelines from the President and the Center for Disease Control, all individuals in the state of Missouri shall avoid social gatherings of more than 10 people. For purposes of this order, social gatherings shall mean any planned or spontaneous event or convening that would bring together more than 10 people in a single space at the same time. It does not differentiate explicitly between indoor and outdoor.
So,
Or what size the space is.
Yeah.
well,
but
I was
this
just saying,
may
let
be-
me ask you that.
Let me see.
Let me ask you real quick. There's some people that have interpreted it as, some towns that I've looked into that on, that do the outdoor activities with, you have a group of 10 and you can have another group of 10 as long as they're 6 feet apart or, a distance more than 6 feet apart. But your group itself cannot be any more than 10 people. I don't know.
Jeez.
So like if you had a group of 10 and then 6 feet, a group of 10, 6 feet, a group of 10.
So I'm looking at, give me a minute if we can, let me look at a couple of the orders on my computer, and if we can come back to this as soon as I have an answer. Because there's 3 orders that are in play here because they don't completely replace the prior ones. They just kind of add on them. So give me a second, I'll get back to you.
When's the
think-
first one scheduled? Mike, do you know when the first one is scheduled for?
Let me look at my calendar.
Is it late June or mid-June?
It's the second Friday in June, whatever.
About
It
4
would
weeks.
be June 12th. June 12th is Warrenton. June 19th would be Wright City, and June 26th would be Marthasville. Then ours again would be July 10th and August 14th would be the next. We're always the second Friday of the month.
Okay.
Maybe by then we will be on phase 2 of the governor's plan.
So we'll have all new things to interpret.
3 weeks from now.
Because
Okay.
isn't he supposed to be reviewing that at the end of May?
Yeah, I think you're right, Terry. I think it was May. End
So
of May.
we have a little bit of time to hopefully get to phase 2 before we would get to June 12th.
Okay, so the most recent order from the Director of Health and Human Services dated April 27, 2020 does not address a 10-person minimum. The only thing it addresses is shall abide by social distancing requirements, 6 feet of space between individuals. So it looks as though the 10-person limitation has been removed. Like for example, for restaurants, it says no more than 10 individuals may sit at a single table. So I would say with confidence that there is no longer the minimum 10-person gathering based on the April 27th order that was issued by the Director of Health and Human Services. But I do think that if we are going to proceed to do that, it would be in our best interest to consider the possibility of requiring masks wearing during the event, if that's something you want to consider. And also, as was stated by, I believe it was Alderman Harvey, that, sorry, I had to find you on the picture screen, that we demarcate in one way, shape, or form or another a 6-foot social distancing group. But I think that's to your discretion on how you want to handle that.
So what you're saying is Brad would have to, and his crew would have to go out there and demarcate the area to designate where people need to be.
Yeah, you could do that. I've seen it with posts and string, and I've seen it with, circles and squares and triangles.
Anybody have any comments on any of that?
I think that's a little overkill. My only thought is the bathrooms is we would almost have to have somebody sanitize them or have plenty of stuff there, but you can't lock them, I wouldn't think, during a concert. But that's my only spot. I think people could they could put themselves far enough away from their people outside that it wouldn't be an issue. I don't know that we need to mark up the whole park.
Restrooms could be an issue.
I think you're probably right about, we would probably request them to wear masks. I think most people would do it. There's probably going to be a few that, just like everything else, they're going to refuse to. Just like when you go shopping, you see most of them wearing masks, but there's always a few that no, not going to do it. So I don't know how we would enforce it, but we can ask. I think we could probably ask them, say, hey, if you're attending the concert, please wear a mask.
Well, we're not requiring anyone to come to this. So I would assume that if you wanted to be there, you would plan to abide by whatever restrictions we have. If you don't want to do that, don't attend the concert. It's not mandatory. It's for people who really want to enjoy an evening of music outdoors.
Okay, well, I guess we'll move forward. I didn't mean to get sidetracked with this, but it kind of came to mind after one of the mayor's comments, so I thought we'd better address it while we can. So
How about we put this on the agenda for next meeting and give you guys some time to think about it before you make a final decision?
Well, and I think that's a great idea because, as always, it seems like things are shifting and changing daily. So there may be
we
more
can do
towns
that.
are
I mean, it's only,
Yeah.
we can wait till then, but it's just an idea of, getting the word out that we're going to have it. And if we're going to postpone it, I need to get hold of bands and do that, break it to them. So,
You got it.
but yeah, if you want to do that, we could postpone it till June 2nd.
I just think, honestly, Mike, I think it's going to open up more as we go along. So we'll probably be a little better prepared if we can wait. But it sounds like most people are in favor of trying to go for it. So, but let's try and get a little more. We can ascertain a little more of what different towns are doing and how they're doing it, and research it a little bit more. Anybody else?
Sounds good to me.
All right, so next part is the CARES funds reimbursement for COVID expenses or of COVID expenses. I'm going to let you know right now, I am going to not participate. I'm going to recuse myself on this because of my affiliation with my work and being a county employee. So I recuse myself at this time for this conversation. Mike, if you could kind of spearhead, or Terry, guiding this meeting or this part of the meeting.
Okay, I guess then Terry, do you want to
Sure, I can
fill
do
us
that.
in a little more on it?
So the mayor attended a meeting with the county commissioners and other mayors on May 12th, along with the county commissioner's attorney. The purpose was to discuss how the CARES funding money of just over $4 million that they received from the state, which originated from the federal government, to cover expenses related to COVID-19. So out of that discussion, the county shared that they intend to have 3 phases of funding. The first being a reimbursement to cities and emergency services for the costs of PPE and overtime of first responders, and the initial phase of funding would pretty much be limited to that, but there was very minimal guidelines and direction given. They have an authorization form, which you had a copy of it in your Dropbox file in your packet, that they want to have signed, that basically says the funds will only be used for those things that were COVID-19 related, and assurances that, you know, the funds would be spent appropriately. They want a designated point of contact within each organization, and a couple of people who are designated to be responsible for making sure in each entity that the funds that are dispersed are used appropriately, and to be responsible for overseeing that. The second phase they discussed was purchasing of a 90-day supply of PPE for all emergency services, to determine what those needs would be for the next 90-day period, and to get a list of that turned in so that they could buy in mass those appropriate PPE supplies. And then third was to hold an amount of money to determine any future projected costs that might be incurred if there's a future outbreak or whatever. They also had established an advisory committee that will review all of the submissions from the different entities for their expenses and recommend approval or denial of those reimbursements to the county commissioners. That advisory committee is made up of Mr. Kemper, Mr. Busher, and Mr. Swice-Guth. That committee has been established and plans a first meeting prior to the end of this month, was the latest thing that I have seen. I believe on the 28th, if I'm not mistaken, is a planned meeting. Subsequent to that meeting, there was a copy of the certification document, which, as I said, you have in your packet. And then also today was distributed through City Hall, and Brandy got it out to all of us, a document from the county commission, a resolution that further spells out what their intentions are, which is basically in conjunction with what they previously had said, limiting, for the most part, reimbursement to personal protective equipment and supplies, and any overtime payroll expenses related to first response. So our discussion tonight really needs to center around your thoughts on the reimbursement. We have had significant costs of what I would call payroll related. If you recall, we gave employees 2 weeks of sick time for the first 2 weeks that City Hall closed. And we've allowed them since to utilize whatever benefit hours that they had that they chose to use to subsequently get paid. We've also had some small payments under the required additional sick time per the CARES Act for someone who had lost their ability for childcare and that sort of thing. So the discussion really needs to be what your thoughts are. Do we as a city want to just submit through the strictest letter of what the county has put out, those PPE costs, and stay strictly with that? Or do you want to submit those additional costs that were absolutely COVID-19 related, and then go from there on what we get? I think, Chris, if you can provide insight, Chris has stayed on top of everything related to this whole CARES Act and what's been going on in other places since its inception. So do you want to provide more insight into what's allowed under the CARES?
Sure, absolutely. So as you guys know, the CARES Act provided money to the state government and also to counties with populations over 500,000 people. And the money that went to the state government was distributed to the counties. The state of Missouri was distributed to the counties based on a per capita basis. There are very broad ranges of what this money can be used for. And like the paycheck protection loans, the Department of Treasury has been issuing guidance as far as what this money can be expended for. So Warren County received approximately just over $4 million, and that was based on the population of Warren County. And, you know, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, the Department of Treasury has issued a guidance, frequently asked questions, similar to the Paycheck Protection Loan Program, in which they have clearly indicated that emergency service workers, their entire payroll costs are reimbursable or payable under the CARES Act. So basically what that means is Warren County got $4 million. The city did not receive any type of per capita distribution because it went directly to the county. The governor has said, even though the county, you know, has ultimate discretion on how that money is spent, the county is required to make distributions to the municipalities and other government entities within the county corporate limit or county boundaries. So the Warren County has taken a very narrow approach to allowable expenditures under the CARES Act to say it's just for COVID-related expenses and COVID-related costs. That has been expanded by the Treasury Department to include all costs for emergency service workers, which would be our police department. I will tell you, I'm dealing with this. There's an organized effort within St. Louis County, which received $175 million amongst all the municipalities, where they are basically petitioning the county executive to say, you got this based on population. We feel that we're entitled to our equitable per capita distribution because you do not provide law enforcement services within the county or within the city limits of St. Louis County. And I think there's 30 or 40 municipalities that have banded together in order to do that. My recommendation is why not ask? Why not put a request in there? Why not point out the fact that this can be used to reimburse law enforcement expenses? Because what else are they going to do with $4 million? And we are in the city limits, which is about a quarter of the population of Warren County. Our police officers, and I think the chief explained this last meeting, would reiterate that again tonight, they are not less busy because of COVID-19. They are the frontline workers. They are the ones being exposed. And with the uncertainty of what the economy will bring over the next 6 months to a year, it would seem prudent to request from the county not just our COVID-related expenses, but also the opportunity to share in some of that money to pay the payroll cost of our law enforcement officers.
I kind of agree with that, Chris. I think that some places may not consider them first line, but I think it makes sense for us as the largest city in the county to go after, and I don't want to say, you know, be greedy, but I mean, go after what we think we should be allowed. Anybody else got any thoughts on that?
I would tend to agree, Mike. First of all, when I read that the county was getting $4.1 million, I thought, well, how in the world are they going to spend that? But I think what Chris has said in preparing for the future, and really our police officers are first line people if they're called, when they're called. So I think we need to move forward with that.
And I think too, Chris, if I understand it right, you said they went for basically the narrowest and staying in line with just COVID-19 related expenses. I can see where now that it's been really expanded, where the county can possibly see where they can get their sheriff's department and deputies probably too, couldn't they? I mean,
Absolutely.
they may come back and ask for that now that it's been expanded. It would make sense, I think, for them to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, you know, requesting reimbursement for COVID-related expenses obviously makes sense, but even beyond that, you know, if the opportunity's there, it's $4.1 million on a per capita basis. That's about $1 million. You know, there's obviously other political entities that should be entitled to request the same payroll reimbursement, whether that's fire or 911 or dispatch. You know, so I think consideration for those payroll expenses during, you know, the stay-at-home order and beyond is prudent on behalf of the city.
Brandy sent me a note that I was muted before. My point was that our staff went to all this trouble to take great care in keeping track of all of these costs. And I think we should request everything that we can get out of this. I'm wondering, I mean, Terry has it nailed down on how much that the COVID has cost the city. How much did the county present as their cost? Do we know?
I don't think, Cheryl, anyone knows that. The submissions are due this Friday, and I have not seen any numbers of how much has been spent anywhere. So we don't have any idea of that, but our number is just over $191,000.
Right.
If we include the sick time, which we would not have paid out had it not, I mean, those things that are on our list would not have occurred had it not been for COVID.
Exactly. And I think we need to, at a minimum, be reimbursed for all the things that clearly were identified as COVID-related charges. You know, our police officers, my goodness, they, as you said, they're on the front lines every day. If there's money to be had for any of our first responders, I think it needs to be spent for them.
Terry, have we been tracking what COVID-related time employees have been doing? For example, calls the officers may have gone out on that relate to, you know, a COVID type thing, or have we not tracked anything?
We have not tracked from the police department because they have worked their regular shifts from the inception. We have, however, tracked all the other departments, anything that was specifically COVID related, and have kept track of all of that time.
You know, I would think it's, I'm sorry, I would think it's logical to go for the reasonable thing at the higher number, because it's going to be negotiated down, because there's a question of how do you substantiate the costs of payroll, and everybody's going to have the same issue. It's not like we're any different than the sheriff's department or the police department or any other city applying for funding. We have to just come up with an approach, and everybody's got to use the same criteria. So I'm assuming everybody's going to submit high, and then they're going to have to figure out what's the criteria for judging this.
Well, Terry, you know exactly how much sick leave cost, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's not some number they're pulling out of the air. They can tell exactly how much that costs. That's a true expense.
But that may be not, it may be sick, but it may not be related to COVID either. So
that's why they all took the sick leave, because they couldn't work because of COVID.
Did everybody do that, or were there people who took time off just because they were ill, or we forced them to take sick leave? How did that happen?
Well, there were two different groups of people. Every employee was given 2 weeks of sick leave. And then there were some who, only a couple, that were given the additional time because of the requirement from the CARES Act that if they lost daycare, that sort of thing, that they be given. In addition to that, many employees took other time, be it vacation or sick or flex time or whatever they had, so that they would get paid rather than not have a paycheck. So there's different categories of those. All of those we have specific numbers for, because we kept track of that. Now, the thing we don't have as we sit here tonight is the overall cost of law enforcement for this period. But that would also be an easy number to put together. It just means going back and looking at actual payroll for whatever the period was from the time that the stay-at-home order was issued. So
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
so those can all be very defined numbers with supporting backup associated with them.
Is there a way that they're going to provide some guidance? I mean, can't the cities sit down with the county and the commissioners and say, let's have a policy that's fair across the board, as opposed to we're going to try to submit something, somebody else can try to submit something else? Is that not a better approach? And I don't know if there's an opportunity to do that before Friday, if that's when the requests are coming in.
Well, the directive that we've gotten thus far is very specific in that what they have said should be submitted was just what I shared earlier. The reimbursement for the costs of personal protective equipment and only overtime hours that were directly COVID related. Those are the only things in their directives that they have said could be submitted. So there was no, based upon my discussion with the mayor after this meeting he attended, there was little input from any of the mayors, and there were no emergency services providers attending that meeting. It was the mayors, the commissioners, and the commissioner's attorney.
Okay.
And I believe it was questioned why on this committee there were not representatives of emergency services and or municipalities, and that was not something that was entertained by the commission, is my understanding.
Are they going to entertain the private sector too?
I have not heard that, although that is something that they could in fact do if they chose to. But that has not been outlined in this resolution that talks about what their plan.
Any other comments?
Well,
on it?
my comment is that this is a lot of money, and it seems to me like we have accounted for every cent that our city has had to cover. And I would like to see some accountability for the funds, to know that if this is going to be handed out, that the people that account for every cent get theirs back.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
What we
Okay,
deserve, nothing less,
I
nothing more.
agree. I think we're probably with Terry and Brandy on top of it, I think we're in a better position probably than even some of the state and federal governments that don't have much oversight for it. But anyway, Terry, what's our next? Do we have to vote on anything, agree to it, or what do we got to do now?
Yes, I think a couple things. Are we in agreement that initially by Friday, we submit those costs that we have identified related to the payout of the sick, related to reimbursement for PPE, related to the leave that our employees have taken as a first step, and then see what response we get from that. And then secondly, that we look at the possibility of submitting law enforcement first responder costs at some point. And if that's the case, then we need to have an agreement that we're going to pursue whatever, we're going to look to see what options there are potentially to be able to make that happen. And then in addition, we need approval for signature of the funding certification document, because that's a requirement that they have that has to be there with our submission of our first expenses.
Well, I think I agree with what you said. For what we need Friday, we've got that. And
Yes.
that was my next point, was that I would think we need to have it in our back pocket, that we have the costs for first responders, police, et cetera, and have that ready to present whenever the opportunity is there. And so, do we take a vote? Do you want to call for a vote, or do we just need everybody's approval? Is everybody on board with it?
Yes.
I am.
I am.
Sounds
Melody,
good to me too.
You want to roll
I think you
call?
need official. I think you need an official motion.
Okay, somebody want to put that in the form of a motion? We have I don't know if I can repeat what everything Terry said.
Well,
I
why don't we
can't.
just make a motion that we authorize the city administrator to submit those costs that have been discussed in the meeting as justified costs related to the application.
That sounds short and sweet and good. Very good idea. So, okay, there's a motion.
Was that a motion?
on
It
the
sounds like
floor.
a motion it was.
Second.
Second, motion by Alderman Ox, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey,
Yes.
Alderman Dyer,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Guys, I have a quick question. Does this include the secondary law enforcement, first responder? That we talked about on a secondary basis. Terry, did we just include that or not? Or do we need a separate motion for that? Because I want to be assured that is part of this as we move along.
The way I understood Alderman Ock's motion was to submit those costs that we have discussed. Is that a true assumption, Alderman Ock?
That's the exact exception. So whatever you discuss as possibility or what you think is fair needs to be included.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
guess to go to Cheryl's question, the intent was to include everything that you stated.
Okay.
And then the second part of that, Alderman Shell Harvey, is the approval for signature of the funding certification.
Okay, we need a motion for that too.
Melody, do we need a motion for that?
yes, please.
Yes, please. Okay.
Who's the authorized sign? Who's supposed to be authorized to sign? I assume it's you, Terry, or the mayor, or does it matter?
There's both. There's two person in case one's not available. At least the second person that's authorized can sign it.
I'd make a motion that we authorize the city administrator and or the mayor to sign the submission.
Second.
If I can make a quick point, I think the mayor, I've advised the mayor it's probably best that he not involve himself directly in this. So could we authorize the president of the Board of Aldermen to be the signator on that?
That'd be fine. I amend my motion to state what the attorney just said.
Okay, we have,
What he said.
That's the easy way out.
Yeah.
Hey, It's probably hard enough for Melody to write one thing down without us all changing it on her.
I'd have done the same thing.
It's hazard.
We have a
pay.
motion. Scott, was you the second while ago? You going to second that motion?
It was Alderman Miller. Alderman Miller.
Oh,
did
it was
the-
Miller? Okay, I'm sorry. I have a motion from Alderman Ock, seconded by Alderman Miller. Roll call vote.
Alderman Shell Harvey,
Yes.
Alderman Dyer,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. So is that everything with regards to that then, Terry?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. I guess I can turn it back over to Mayor Schluter then.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Alderman Shelby. Next, we're from City Administrator Terry Thorne.
I really don't have anything else for you this evening.
Well, that's a quick and easy.
That was
way.
easy.
Yeah, do we want to, though, discuss future meetings and what your preference is moving forward as far as to continue the Zoom meetings, or do we want to do in-person meetings with social distancing in place? I think it's just really whatever our overall preference is. Neither one of them are as succinct as obviously the old way of doing things, but as long as social distancing requirements are in place, I feel that we must honor those just as we're asking everyone else to. So those are really our two options, is either to do it the way we did in the chambers when everyone was spread at part at the table and part at the dais, or to continue to do the Zoom meetings in this fashion.
I'll go first. My preference is that we go back to a public meeting and give the public an option somehow to attend if necessary. I think the sooner we do that, the sooner we get away from concern that something's going on that the public may be missing. And I think there's adequate room in the chamber, or we could go to a different facility that might be larger. I don't know if that's a possibility either, but that would be my preference.
But then you get back to the 10 maximum.
They got rid of that.
Or is that completely? Okay.
That's what I think that's what the city attorney said earlier, that the latest order from the governor had got away from.
Well, and I think one of the things I've noticed in other municipalities is, there are a lot of cities that are kind of, because there is a personal choice with the Board of Aldermen right now that, you can attend via Zoom even if it's an in-person meeting. So you could have some attending via Zoom, some attending in person. So, based on where we're at right now, if there's a comfort level issue, we'd have to figure out the logistics of it. But it's, I think, one of the things that we could consider regarding, going back, that some could be in live person attendance, some could still attend via Zoom as well.
And what about mask, Chris? If we go back to in person, are we obligated because of what we've put out there that if we're going to be in a room that we need to wear masks as well?
Well, my philosophy, Terry, it's always been, if we're going to make rules, even though we're legally not required to follow our own rules, we have always followed our own rules, whether it's whatever it is for any project that we've done. So, obviously, I think that's a consideration. Obviously, a lot of people do watch the meetings on YouTube. So if there is a person meeting in attendance, I would recommend masks be worn, just really for being a good example. That seems to be, there's a consistent, opinion of, the board here to be a good example in that manner.
In that case, I think we better do video for another couple meetings.
Yeah, I'm not in for wearing masks.
Okay,
Well-
so then is it a correct assumption that we will continue then for at least a couple more meetings until something changes with the social distancing requirements, and we'll continue to use Zoom meetings?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, well, we do have a budget work session coming up in June on the 9th. And so for that being a work session, do we want to try to spread tables in the chamber and observe the social distancing and wear our masks so that we can be in the same room for that budget work session? Or do we want to show the document here as Brandy is showing us the agenda and do it this way?
Personally, the budget is so important. I want to be in the room with everybody else, and if we have to wear a mask, we have to wear a mask. But I don't want to do budget on a Zoom call. That is just my personal opinion, and I'll go with what the majority says. But I think I'd rather be in the room.
I think that would be easier, and I don't have a problem wearing a mask for an hour or two, whatever it takes.
Hello.
Is anybody opposed?
What do you want? Do I have a voice in this or not? That's
Yes, you do.
Everybody's got a voice in it.
I wore a mask for the first time at church Sunday, and I felt so claustrophobic. I wanted to leave service. I don't wear a mask. I'll stand in the other room if I have to.
You got to poke a hole in it.
Good as wearing a mask.
You know what? How about we're in the same room distance, and those of you that want to wear a mask can wear one, and if you don't, okay, but this chick's gonna have her mask on.
You feel
I
free.
kind of agree that with regards to, since it's a budget meeting, I like to be able to interact closer with everybody as far as numbers. And I know especially Gary Ock is our numbers crunching expert. And, you know, I would rather be in the same room with him to be able to pick his brain. It's easier to do it in the same room than it is on Zoom. So
I agree.
and likewise,
Well,
likewise with all the department heads that are going to be presenting or that have to be there.
I know Alderman Schultz probably going to like what I have to say, but if one's going to wear a mask, we all need to wear a mask. We can't do one or the other and show different. We've been through this whole thing united and doing the same thing and agreeing upon it. We need to, if one does it, we all do it.
So would we have the ability in that situation to what Chris said earlier? If you're uncomfortable being in that situation, then you could do it by Zoom?
I think you could. I don't see any reason why you couldn't.
So Alderman Schultz, if the mask is uncomfortable, then you could call in on the Zoom call and we can show the documents on the screen.
Well, I'm not going to be I don't want to be the one guy out that doesn't want to attend the meeting, but our last, if I remember, our last budget meeting was how many hours? 4 or 5?
It will probably be a couple hours. So, you know, and that way everyone would have a choice. If you want to choose to be there in person, you can. And if you don't, then we will make it available to be able to do it on Zoom as well. Because there may be some department heads as well who aren't comfortable being there. I don't know where they stand on being in a room with people because we've not been doing that. So I think having the option there is a good way to go. If you're okay with that, Mayor.
I'm perfectly fine with it. You know, same way. I'm not going to say that you get totally claustrophobic, but being in a mask for 2 hours and speaking a lot may get to me after a while as well. And I may end up pulling it down, and I don't want to be one of those guys that does that.
Well, that'll give you an idea of what the doctors and nurses have been going through for months.
I
Oh,
was just about to
all
say
gosh
the
dang day.
same
I
Well,
agree
thing, Bob.
100%. I'm not saying that that's why I carried a gun and not a scalpel for a living, because that was not for me.
Yeah.
So are we okay with putting it out there as an option? You either have the option of being there in person. We will set tables up so that everyone is appropriately distanced and make sure that there are masks there for everyone in case you don't have one. And if you want to attend by Zoom, we will make sure that we have that set up so that you can look at the same documents as we're going to look at on the screen and be involved in the conversation. Best of both worlds.
I think everybody kind of needs to give you a heads up at least a weekend before or whatever, a couple days before, as to how they're going to be attending.
Well, yeah, we will need to know so that we can make sure we have the setup, but we can certainly make that option available.
Sounds good to me.
I'll
Me
be there.
too.
I'll be there in person. What time?
Do we have a time established, Melody, for that?
Last year we did it at 5. We started at 5.
Does 5 not work for anyone?
Sounds good to me.
What day,
I
pick
would
a
love-
day and I'll have to let you know. Now that I'm in the city, I don't know what my
June the
schedule is.
9th. June the 9th, Gary.
Oh, Harry.
I don't have anything scheduled so far, but that doesn't mean that won't happen. So go ahead, set the date as best you can, and we'll see.
What time do you typically get back to town, Gary?
6 o'clock.
I mean, we can set it at 6 o'clock if that's more comfortable for everyone and just to make sure. I mean, they're looking to you for financial guidance, Gary. If you're not there, then what
Yeah,
are
we
gonna
want you
do?
there. 6 o'clock.
Well, I
You
wasn't
bring
going
your
to wear a mask. I'm kind of in Scott's camp, but
I don't care.
Well, you can be there on Zoom and still participate.
Yeah, well, I was kind of inclined not to be there anyway. I could Zoom from, if it's let's start at 5 and then I'll just Zoom it from work. How's that? And I won't come home that night. I'll just Zoom it from St. Louis.
Okay, great.
Well, I was kind of hoping he'd wear one of his wife's masks. She made so many good-looking masks. I was hoping he'd wear one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like Scott. I wore one of her masks. We have to wear them at work, and I couldn't breathe because of sinuses. And so then I had my wife made something that's not as thick, and that was better. I might have perfected by the time she gets there. I'm the only one who can do special orders from her. Everybody else has to take what she sews, but I get a special order. So we'll see. We'll try to work something out.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Director of Operations, Brandy Walters.
Good evening. My first thing on the agenda is the admin monthly report for April. Unfortunately, I have to report that another special event was canceled, and that was for the fishing derby. So they have canceled, the Elks Lodge has canceled that. Other than that, we haven't really done a whole lot on as far as like this type of stuff. So we've been just trying to keep up on Facebook and trying to keep business as normal.
Hey, Brandy, can you tell me, going back last month, rarely, if ever, have we had that many citizen complaints. And I was just wondering if those were COVID related in some way.
No. You got to understand also the citizen complaints come through on our website. So it could be for a pothole. It could be for a street light out. It could be just about anything. It's not necessarily negative, you know, that kind of stuff, but nothing was related to COVID.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
When it said 14, that has never happened before. And so,
Yeah.
so it's not necessarily a complaint.
Right. It can be stuff that's coming in off of our website that people are reporting because now people are getting used to that. It's now become pretty active as far as making reports on our website. You don't have to really talk to anybody or you fill out a form online. So people are really getting used to that.
Okay.
Or it could be, it could also be a complaint about a noisy neighbor or something as well, but there's a lot in that category.
So maybe the title of that should be citizen communications rather than citizen complaints.
Yeah,
I think that would be appropriate, yes.
Yeah, we can change that. Any questions?
No?
Okay. The next thing that I have for you is the health insurance waiver reimbursements for this year. We have a policy in place where we reimburse if an employee doesn't take out health insurance and they can prove that they have it somewhere else. We reimburse them for half of what it would have cost us for an individual for the year. So this year, the cost was $7,590.96 per individual. So we are reimbursing to all of these folks on this list $3,795.48. And that is for half of what it would have cost for them. So it is a total of $37,954.80. And that would go out with, if you approve that tonight, that'll go out on payroll on June 12th.
Make a motion, we approve the.
Second that motion.
So motion made by Alderman Darby, seconded by Alderman Schultz. I'll vote.
Alderman Dyer,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. And then the last thing that I have for you tonight is the road relinquishment agreement. So this is the last piece for the roads to be turned over to us from MoDOT. That is, I have a picture up here for you on the screen. So it's going to be all of the red that's going to be turned over to us for repair and maintenance. We've already turned over the actual interchange to MoDOT. So this is our last piece to close out this project.
Kind of a related question on the project. I know there's been some people discussing the speed limit on that road. Now that we're taking it over, we need to have the police chief kind of do a study and make a recommendation on that. Just so so they're all on the same page.
Are you talking about Veterans Memorial or the stretch or both?
The Veterans Memorial one. I think that's where people were commenting about it changes or it's inconsistent or something. Probably wouldn't hurt just to look at it and see if it might be perfectly fine. I don't know.
Okay, we can have him do that. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Any other questions on?
No.
There's a bill later that will be approved for signature. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Brandy. Excellent. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Director of Planning and Development, Neil Fick.
All right. Good evening. You have a copy of my monthly report. Do you have any questions?
Neil, I have a question that you might know. Out by the new overpass, have we had a number of inquiries regarding development out in that area?
I don't have any applications for out there, but there's been some inquiries, yes, but I don't have any applications.
Thank you.
That was an answer like you've been asked that before, Neil.
Yes. I do have the public hearing notice went out on Thursday, and that is for Creekside Apartments, which is at AA in the Service Road, and for the Orange Blossom Estates. So that'll be on next month's agenda.
Any questions for Neil?
Nope.
No.
Yep.
All right, Neil, I appreciate it. And anything else?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Maintenance and Grounds Director Brad Boozy Cruz.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. You have my monthly report.
You cutting any grass?
Just a little. Trying to keep up is what we're trying to do.
Cutting that with your water wings on, are you?
Yeah, just about, I tell you.
Jeez.
Need rice tires on them mowers.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to start putting some on them.
I'm going to get a citation from the city. I swear, my yard is way taller than it needs to be.
Any other questions for Brad?
I have one other thing. Had a little found out some bad news. I don't know if you all are familiar with Kurt Teo. He's the parks director down at Wright City. Passed away, and he's been a long time. He's been down here about 17 years. I just found out about that today. Him and I worked on quite a few. We shared a lot of information and stuff, and I was sorry to hear he passed away.
I saw that yesterday. I didn't know. What was it on the 20 or when did he pass? Was it last week?
I think so. Yes. They're
Friday.
Is that what it was,
Friday morning, I think it was, because I heard about it Friday night.
Terry, I don't know if it's feasible.
Or was it Saturday morning? I heard about it Saturday night. Yeah, Kurt, I worked close with him as I do with Brad on the concerts in the park. And he was very easy to work with, very good guy to work with and everything. And Wright City's going to miss him. He was involved in not just the park, but Corey League, Little League ball and all that stuff, soccer and everything.
Yeah, he's going to be sorely missed in Wright City for sure.
Will we send out a sympathy card, or what do we do in those cases?
We can certainly send a card from the mayor and board to his family.
I think that would be
probably be a good idea.
Yeah,
I agree.
We'll take care of that.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. Anything else, Brad?
Glad you brought it up.
No,
Brad.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Next, we'll hear from Building Commissioner Mike Cross.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. You have my monthly report.
Hey, Mike, we have 10 new residential permits. Where are the majority of those from? My neck of the woods or all over?
Well, it's a mixture between Walnut Hollow, Jeff Yeager, and Houston. Houston's been the biggest so far.
Okay. Wonderful to see double-digit numbers for permits.
Yes.
Love it.
We've had six more residential permits turned in so far this month.
Oh, good.
Wow.
Good.
Good deal.
And
So what-
I was contacted by Cozart Homes. They have purchased 8 lots in Walnut Hollow, and we'll be turning in plans here in the next couple weeks for review.
Wow, that's good.
Yes.
Great to hear.
So where is the other, you mentioned, was it Kozar, the name you mentioned before? Where are they working at?
Well, Cozart is currently building some homes in Troy area, but those new ones that they bought the 8 lots for are in the back end of Walnut Hollow.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mike?
nope.
Yeah, hey, real quick, I got, Mike, will there be a street platted, possibly a street platted through there where the right of way is, if anybody wants to develop that property just beyond Walnut Hollow? where this guy's building? Right now, there's a dead end there, but there's a easement there and everything. Is there potentially street through there? Or do you know?
I do not
Would
know
that be-
the answer to that.
Would that be something a developer would have to do?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, okay.
Mike, that would be determined when a subdivision application was submitted and the
Oh.
street laid out as a part of the subdivision. And then,
Okay.
yeah, the developer, whoever's submitting the subdivision, would be required to put in the necessary infrastructure.
Okay.
I have a question regarding the, is it Double M and Highway U junction down west of Binkley there? Are those going to be mostly multifamily, like apartment building, or what? Do we know what's going to be out there for sure?
I believe he's just cleaning up that land to make it more saleable at this time.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions for Mike?
Nope.
Okay. Mike, anything else?
No, just let you know that Aldi's just turned in some plans to do about $1 million renovation to their building.
Holy cow.
Yes.
Mike, who did you say? I'm sorry.
Aldi's,
Oh,
yes.
oh, wow.
They do a whale of a business there.
Yes, they do. Wow, that's good.
Yes, it is.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome, sir.
Next, we'll hear from Chief of Police Larry Ellard.
Good evening. I just have one item for you tonight, and that's my monthly report.
We had a lot of overdoses in the month of April.
A lot of people are at home.
Chief, I have a question on the second page. There is under the heading of recovered property, 13,000. Is that dollars worth of property, or is that 13,000 items that you guys have recovered?
That would be an item, probably a car, a stolen car.
13,000?
It's a dollar amount of.
Oh, it's okay. That's what I thought. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Anybody else have a question for him?
Nope. Thanks, Larry.
All right.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So we are at that section or part of the meeting. I will entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 11-2020 or 2020.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller. Second by Alderman Deloy.
An ordinance authorizing execution of a road relinquishment agreement between the city of Warrenton, Missouri and the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission for Route MM and a portion of South Outer Road.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 11-2020 or 2020.
So moved.
Second.
I believe the first one was Alderman Schultz. Second one was Alderman Dyer.
An ordinance authorizing execution of a road relinquishment agreement between the city of Warrenton, Missouri and the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission for Route MM and a portion of the South Outer Road.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey,
Yes.
Alderman Dyer.
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. And I will entertain a motion to close the regular Board of Alderman meeting.
Can I just say one thing? I would like to offer condolences to George and Dana Heath on the loss of their Continental Pump building. That was a horrible loss for them. George and Dana are huge supporters of this community in so many ways, and it was very tragic that they lost their business. So I'm sure all of us would agree that we're very, very sad for them. And I hope that they get back in full service again very, very soon. So.
Can I ask a question before we go to? I noticed there's a lot of equipment out there at the well by the high school. Is this the project that Cheryl Dyer so badly wants? True?
I don't need it now. My plumber took care of it.
No, but are we looking now? Is this the project to increase the water out in that area where all the big growth is going, or is there something else going on?
No, it's related to the well.
The upgrade we talked about, or just the well repair and maintenance?
No, they are drilling the new well.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
More pressure.
You'll have to put a restrictor on it when this is done.
It's gonna blow my washer door open when this happens. Okay, bring it on.
All right, Mayor.
I'll entertain a motion to close the regular Board of Alderman meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Brandy, Melody, which one did you get a second?
Alderman Dyer.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Dyer. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Not hearing any, we are so adjourned.
Okay.
Bye,
See you guys wherever